The Washington Post reporter who has been closely following this story also weighed in during an interview last night. Take a listen to what he had to say.
They have begun to believe, the Bezos camp, that this publication by the National Inquirer might have been politically motivated. I would just add one other thing. You mentioned hacking at the top of the show. Gavin DeBecker told us that he does not believe that Jeff Bezos's phone was hacked. He thinks it's possible that a government entity might have gotten hold of his text messages.
A government entity. So here to break that down in terms of the government angle is Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman.
It's a Robert Ludlum novel. I mean, it's amazing.
There's so many things here, and the fact that a government entity could be involved.
Okay, this would be explosive if true. So if a government entity is involved, that means the FBI or some intelligence or law enforcement agency somehow actually hacked into the phone or the service provider to get these photos. I think that is extremely unlikely. So we know President Trump, in ways, has tried to politicize some of these agencies, but there has been ferocious pushback from intelligence and law enforcement agencies. And if this actually happened, it doesn't just mean that, I mean, the implication is that perhaps President Trump ordered somebody to do this, but for this to have happened, it means somebody had to have ordered it, which this, I think, would be a clear violation of the law and without a doubt an abuse of power. Not only would somebody, a professional, have had to ordered it, it would have had to been carried out through several layers of chain of command, for example. And journalistically, I can tell you it would be a massive abuse of power, harkening back to the days of J. Edgar Hoover when he used the FBI to settle personal scores and things like that. And it would be appalling. I actually think it's very unlikely. And as far as I know, the Jeff Bezos side has not said we have any evidence. You know, to say we think this might have been the case is one thing. To say here's some evidence would be totally different.
Does this remind you, Rick, of any other CEO scandal in the past of this magnitude? I mean,
well, the one thing it does remind me of is the lawsuit Hulk Hogan filed against Gawker, which obtained that sex video. I might be getting the details wrong here, but obtained that sex video and published portions of it or elements of it. And then he filed a lawsuit, which we found out later was financed by the billionaire Peter Thiel, and he actually won. And the judgment against Gawker in that case actually bankrupted the company and put them out of business. Now, as far as we know, and Alexis Keene and I have been talking about this all morning, like, what is really going on here anyway? So far, nobody has actually sued anybody. So Jeff Bezos has not sued the American media or the National Inquirer, and they have not sued him either. So the most interesting development since 2 hours ago, I guess, is this news you just mentioned, that Bloomberg saying that now, at least now, some law enforcement authorities are actually investigating whether American media may have committed a crime in the way they obtained these photos.
What's interesting through all of this, right, and again, Jeff Bezos coming out and writing all of this in a Medium blog post. It's not as if someone scooped this news and it was out there. It was him deciding, I want to tell the story of what's going on, despite the fact that now everyone is going to be talking about the fact that he was sending these pictures back and forth. But there's an obvious question there, and he kind of hit on it in his blog post, was to counter the point that shareholders of Amazon would need to know this because there are question marks now about his ability to run the company. And I don't know how fair those are in your mind. I don't know if there's any credence to that, because we've obviously seen CEOs run two companies at the same time, Jack Dorsey being one of them. I mean, would this scandal theoretically maybe make Jeff Bezos incapable of running?
Well, journalistically, I think that's totally bogus. I think if we here at Yahoo Finance, for example, if we came into possession of photos like this and we sat around and said, is this relevant to the way Jeff Bezos runs his company? It'd be a very hard case to say, yes, it is relevant. Remember, these
conversations with
that's right. It's not as if, so he shared, we think what happened is he took these photos and he shared them with one person, and that was something that happened between two people. Is that newsworthy from a business angle? I would maintain it is not.
But at this point, now that he's bogged down by all of this news, what do you think?
Look, CEOs get divorced all the time. CEOs actually have affairs all the time.
But this level of scandal and this level of...
Let me put it this way. I'm not sure what the bad judgment was that Jeff Bezos may have shown here. The only thing you could say is the bad judgment was taking the photos in the first place and therefore creating this record that exists on a device and then sending those photos to one person that he was in an intimate relationship with and apparently still is. does anyone think? I'll ask you guys. Was that bad judgment?
I mean, that's great judgment when you're a public figure, but it happens all the time.
But does it reflect poorly on the way you run your company?
It's a tough way to prove.
I think there's absolutely no connection. But on the other hand, the First Amendment provides wide latitude for what so-called news organizations or anybody really is allowed to publish, and that's what American media is claiming in this case. That we, whether you agree with it or not, we do have the right to publish. That's what they're saying.
Well, it's going to be followed very, very closely, nonstop.
I will predict this: any hit to Amazon stock will be temporary. The stock will recover because eventually it's going to be all about the results. And Amazon is a killer company.
And Jeff Bezos is making sure he posted that in the Medium post.
He's not wrong.
And the shares right now, we're just seeing them drop 2%. All right, thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.